Stephen here, and I'm with Adrian.
Yes. Hello.
And we are a man down. Jason is no longer with us. By which I mean he's just not with us today, but he's still very much alive. He decided that he couldn't make it, and we'll have to do our best without his wisdom and guidance.
He's driving a very large truck across the country.
Yes, I'm actually
Cool.
kind of jealous. But
Yeah.
let's well, okay, so we released an alpha. That may be news to some people. The game is out there. You can get it on Steam, provided you have a key. And we have some pretty sweet forums where you can discuss the game, and many people have and are posting some really sweet spells. So if any of that is news to you, you didn't know that the alpha was released, or you didn't know that there were forums, or you haven't gotten your access keys, you should definitely email us because you're probably not getting our emails. So let's actually, Mr. Adrian, can we head over to the forums? We had a spell contest, and we are going to announce some winners. And I believe that there are 5 of them, but I'll let you take us through what their spells are and
Yeah.
why
So
you think they're awesome.
we were originally going to do one winner, and that winner would get an alpha key. But there were a lot, and it was difficult to decide, so we decided to just give out 5 alpha keys to 5 people. So yeah, so let's start. If I can figure out where to open. So the first one is the targeted flare gun by CodeGlitch. CodeGlitch, who is actually in the chat over here. I'm also
Whoa!
watching on the second screen. CodeGlitch came up with all sorts of crazy spells. I've been trying to keep up with the forums, but it's kind of going faster than I can keep up with. But CodeGlitch did a bunch of amazing spells. Most of them use eval, which was something that I will admit we accidentally left in. That was more of like a debug thing, and we didn't really expect people to do too much with it, but it's been amazing because people have been able to fill in the gaps for things that we haven't done yet. So this
Yeah,
one
it was a
is
happy accident, I think.
yeah, and I mean it kind of goes along with the idea that we don't really care if people break the game. I mean, we're going to build a game that is well balanced and fun to play. Um, but at the same time, the game is about coding. We want there to be ways of breaking it. We'll have contained ways of making the game feel balanced, especially for multiplayer. We'll have restrictions, like you won't be able to use eval unless both players agree to use eval. And if anyone doesn't know what the eval does, that's basically allowing you to do lower level JavaScript code through the Blockly interface. So you can make your spells in Blockly, but since we're not going to make it possible to do everything with Blockly, you can hack the game and write in directly in JavaScript using eval. So yeah, I'll show a video of this one. It's pretty sweet. So the way it works, it's a video instead of a video. So crazy.
Videoception.
So this is pretty
Whoa, whoa,
awesome. He
whoa,
placed a
whoa.
bunch of orbs, and then so CodeGlitch placed a bunch of orbs and then set the paint target and clicked, and they all went to it. Which seems like a pretty simple thing, but you can do so much awesome stuff with that. Like if you take that, you can make you could make a trap. You do all sorts of things. It's a pretty awesome spell.
And I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a kind of like multi-part spell, or it's a couple of spells in one, because you would first cast some spells to set some traps, and then you would cast the paint target spell to trigger them. Is that how
Yeah,
it works?
yeah, totally.
So I love that. I love the idea of combining multiple spells together as part of a larger strategy, or
Yeah,
as part of a larger effect.
yeah, and at one point through the eval stuff, they're checking to see if the flare gun, um, if they found the flare gun, so they all know how to lock on. So I imagine you could write any other spell that could also lock on in the same way, which is really cool.
Right, and this is inter-orb communication, right? Which actually
Hmm.
we're going to be natively supporting. We added a couple of features related to that for this next upcoming update, though I don't know
Yeah,
if
yeah.
it'll be
Actually,
this powerful yet.
we might be able to demo some of that in a little bit. But
But yeah,
yeah,
congrats to Code Glitch. This is really cool.
yeah.
So
So
Code Glitch gets a free car, right? Is that what?
yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no. So it was
You have to
Alpha
talk to
Keys. That's right.
Lindsay about that one. Yeah.
No, I forgot. It's not
Um,
cars. It's Alpha Keys. Yeah. It's
maybe you can make a
for
car.
we could make a car maybe in CodeSpells.
Yeah, I feel like we need Jason to redirect us from
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Our art director goes away for one day,
There's gonna be
and
cars
now
in
there are
my game now.
cars. All right. So who's
Okay. So let's go to the next one. This one is pretty awesome. So this one's by Almighty Sarb. I don't know. I don't know how to. But this spell it also uses eval to do a raycast, and then raycast, for anyone that's not familiar with that, is just you check a point in a direction, and if whatever it hits first, you you get that point. So in this case, the spell is being cast in a direction, and the point that it does it creates like a little explosion. But this is really cool with this with teleportation. So uh, Almighty uh, uh, hooked it up so that wherever you would shoot, it would then teleport you over there.
Oh,
And
that's awesome.
this is a really nicely looping GIF right here. I say GIF. I don't know if that's a problem.
Oh,
Uh,
that's not a problem with me. That's not a
okay.
problem with me.
um,
So this is an interesting thing. So can you tell me
sorry.
whether you think this would find its way into the fine, or like let's say you were playing a Wizard Duel multiplayer version of Codespells, in the future when that exists. Is this the kind of spell you would want to be in that game? Or
Yeah, so like I said, we want players to be able to use eval if both players agree to use eval. But there are definitely things you can break in the game. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm pretty sure that there is a thing that you can do in eval that will delete all the objects in the world and just crash the game. Um, which I don't recommend doing because it won't be particularly exciting.
but
So
evil aside, is teleportation something that
yeah,
you think?
so going back from there, the idea is we want to set certain restrictions so that you can't do anything, because if you can teleport by just setting the position of the player, for instance, then um, you could teleport your opponent to any position or yourself to any position, and it gets a little bit hard to balance all of that.
Sure.
So certainly for the single player, this is fine, or for multiplayer, if both sides allow eval, then that's totally fine. But if not, we have some plans for making a part of fire magic allow you to decompose objects into its elements. So you could turn the player into this ash and then move the ash not instantly but very quickly across the map, and then re-materialize the player on the other end. So, and obviously that would be a very high cost. Uh,
Which
uh,
I love, by the way.
well,
I like the idea. I mean, fire, I'll confess, is one of my favorite elements, and I like the idea that fire can be about more than just destroying things. I do like it to be about destroying things, but I would like fire to have more depth. So I think
yeah,
that is really cool.
absolutely. I mean, yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, this is awesome. I'm actually surprised that a lot of this works. That the yeah,
So
I
yeah, another congratulations.
to
We'll be
Almighty.
giving out to
Oh,
Almighty. We'll be getting a car or an alpha key. I can't remember which. We'll have to ask Lindsay. Excellent.
cool.
Who's our third winner?
So Keter, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Uh, Keter actually did a couple of spells that were awesome, but I particularly like this one because it looks hilarious. This one also uses some eval. Um, it actually uses a lot of eval. It creates all sorts of boulders and crazy stuff, but it's pretty hilarious. um, so yeah, I
That
mean
is awesome.
this is the hammer smash your enemies by Keter. I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah, I love this just because it just feels so. I mean, you could write a spell to just launch those guys, but it's just such a funny moment to like hit them with a physical object.
Yeah, like
Um,
there's definitely like you get points for style or aesthetics, you know.
Yep.
There are a lot of different ways to do things, and this is definitely very much in the spirit of being an Earth Wizard for sure. Like if I were an Earth Wizard, I would definitely smash people with a rock hammer.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, I love this. It's funny because a lot of the things that people are creating with these spells is helping give us ideas for what new things we want to add for the API. Like we wanted to add a torque connection, which would allow you to apply torque to an object, and this could you'd be able to like turn objects like this with a force without having to use eval. Uh, this
mhm.
also creates an object out of thin air, which is pretty cool also, but you could combine a rematerialization with fire and then apply a torque to it to smash like this. And you could do all sorts of crazy things, but this is awesome. Also,
Yeah, so awesome job, Keter. So that
yeah,
was number
three. We have
four,
two more.
three.
We have
All
two
right,
more. Two
Miss
more cards to go
Lucky
out.
number four.
Um, yeah. Oh, so this one is Terra Shift by Are and Tuluva. I should have asked people how to pronounce their names. um,
It's a good guess. I like it.
yeah. No. So what I really like about this spell, by the way, I want to give a shout out to 711. I don't actually know how to pronounce it, but 711 is helping moderate on the forums. I'm doing an awesome job of that, and helped us to pick these. So thanks for that.
Yeah,
Um,
awesome.
yeah, this spell is purely done in Blockly, so there is no eval. All of it is written within the game, and what it is it has multiple layers where when you click, so there's an activate orb button that you click. And when you click it, it change. It usually is just to do a single action, but what this spell does is it actually changes between multiple states. So here you can see uh, Aure. Aure. I'm gonna call him. I'm just gonna call this person Aura. Aura, you can see Aura shooting
Oh,
at at the rocks, and then on the first click, they all come together to where the player is looking, and then on the second, they move to the side. I believe I don't know the exacts, but then they start orbiting, and then they can be launched again. So it keeps track of how many times you've pressed, and you could do all sorts of crazy things where you could grab blocks and pull them towards you and make a shield out of them, uh, and then launch them out into the
that's
air.
fascinating. And so he's essentially using the on activate to switch states for the spell.
Yep. And it's
Yeah.
arre. I'm saying in the chat that it's arre.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah, but this is super awesome spell.
yeah.
Um,
Congratulations
and
to
cool. And the last one that we'll be getting an alpha key is Praxity, MIDI Mines, Turrets, and Mana Conservation by Lazy Flamingo. So this also uses some eval, but it's not an insane amount. So it's fairly contained, and this actually uses eval in ways that we do want to strictly allow. We have an idea for putting spells in a dormant state, and this does something very similar to that, where while the spell isn't doing something, it's kind of cheating and adding more mana to the spell, which shouldn't be possible. But if we had a dormant state, then you would be able to do that. Um, but it's super cool. It allows you to set a trap. So you can place a spell, or you can place an orb, and then whenever another orb touches it, it will create another spell. So you can change which spell it creates. In this case, I think it's creating an explosion. I think there's another example somewhere. That one's pretty cool. So it creates like this weird, like pushy,
That's
like pulley
sweet.
thing. So there's a trap set right here that you can see, and then the rock is pulled towards the player, and then it's kind of pushed off into the distance. So
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah, this could be used for all sorts of crazy things. It's kind of like the the flare spell, where you could expand it in so many ways. Um, um, Code Glitch wanted to see the World Engine one. I am going to show that one because it's super awesome, actually. Uh,
Is that by the same person as this last one?
yeah, well, no, it's by Code Glitch, but
Oh,
sorry, we should finish up with that one really quick.
yeah. So Proximity Mines is by
This was by Lazy Flamingo.
Lazy Flamingo. Awesome job. This is really cool. Actually, I think like setting traps and stuff sort of fits my personality. I think that's how I would play in a
Yeah, this is
multiplayer setting.
incredible. Like I I wanna like this really made me want to finish the or to work on the dormant spell thing
Oh yeah.
this month, but we've been working on other stuff which we'll talk about in a little bit. But like this is exactly the type of thing that we want you to be able to do. So this is
Cool.
awesome.
Well,
Um,
let's congratulate our 5 winners first of
yeah,
all. That
absolutely.
these are phenomenal. I mean, I think all of these qualify as like beyond what we imagined would be possible, and that's actually, I think it's a really cool feeling for us to well, we're gonna make this game, and we think people will be able to make cool things with it, but it's something else for us to actually see people doing it, and yeah, so it's awesome. It's just really
Yeah,
encouraging.
yeah, and it's kind of it was kind of a happy mistake that we left eval in because it allows us to get better feedback about what it is that people want to do with the game. And again, a lot of it won't be, we'll have to set restrictions on it, but at least for now, it works great at filling in the gaps, saying what can already be done.
All right, well,
So,
let's take a look at this world engine, and then let's actually tell people a little bit about what we've done and where we're heading for next month.
yeah, yeah. So I just wanted to show this because it's crazy. So this one actually
Oh
goes through all of the objects. This is also by Code Glitch.
man.
It goes through all of the objects in the world and lifts them up and then just smashes them onto the ground.
That
This
is
is
awesome.
pretty amazing. Um,
That looks really cool, by the way. I just have to say
yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
I makes me want a splash effect though. Okay, sorry, I'm picky.
That's
Um,
definitely something you could do. I wonder how much in real life, sorry, in real life code spells. I wonder how much mana that would cost. I don't
this,
know.
yeah.
Because that's
So
epic. That is really epic. Lifting up everything on the island.
yeah, I mean, we want you to be able to do this kind of thing. Yeah, we'll talk about that. We
That's
should go
awesome.
into what we're doing this month, and we'll talk about that from a little bit more.
Anyway,
Um,
that is cool.
cool. Yeah. So let's. Do you want to transition to the game?
Yeah.
Congratulations again to all 5 winners.
Yeah. Nice job. Nice job. Expect your cars or
I
off the key.
you're
I know. I'm really hyping it up. They're gonna be.
yeah. You're gonna you're gonna have to fix this. Uh,
All right. So cool. So we yeah. While it's loading up, I know I think we said this in our last update, but one thing we were doing at the end of December, we're, we had like this crisis where we were saying to ourselves, Earth magic is cool, but it's not really cool enough. And we went through a lot of things, just a lot of discussions about how to make it cooler. And what we ended up doing was just putting the croakers, or the little creatures in there, just as a thing, as a target to like hit with rocks and run away from. And we felt like it was just it really like changed the nature of the game, and suddenly gave you a reason to be coding, or a reason to be casting spells. And so we realized that instead of saving life as a thing that we're going to do at the end, we would kind of sprinkle it in during our design process, because it makes the other elements more interesting to work with. And so since we are going to be working on water magic as the first or next element after Earth, we decided we would add in a system that would make water magic more interesting and sort of reactive when you use it. And so that is foliage, plants, plant life as a low-level system. And so let's demonstrate just kind of like what we have so far, and maybe I should
transition smoothly in that. That was supposed
yeah,
to be like an epic smooth transition.
Yeah, where is the smooth transition?
Yeah. So this is all, it's pretty rudimentary right now. I mean, there's not like, we're adding some foliage here. So yeah, sorry, Steve, what were you saying?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was just saying. Well, we should maybe. Okay, so you're showing it off. We got some cool little plants here. Now, I should say these plants don't actually do anything yet. They're a low-level system that we would build other systems on top of. But you can imagine that, like creatures would eat them. I think we just saw two different kinds of plants there. There's some on the sand and some up on the dirt on top of the rocks. These two that Mr. Jason created for us, and they. So Adrian, why don't you tell us a little bit about how these plants get placed? Because I'm betting they are not placed there by hand by Mr. Jason.
Yeah. So we realized that for foliage specifically, we want it to be a physical manifestation of the things that are going on in the world. So these are placed randomly depending on the amount of sand that there is, their distance from water, and a couple of other factors, altitude, slope of the ground where they are. So if we move around stuff, it will actually update and change the foliage that's there. And so these showed up here because these can grow on rock, but they can't grow on sand, and they're satisfying the conditions of being far away enough from the water. So the idea here is that we kind of want the systems of the world to be more visible, just by looking at the world and running around it. Which leads into what we want to do next, which we've kind of been setting up for, which is a higher level representation of the world. So I don't know if you want to talk about that just yet, Stephen, but we want to move towards kind of the idea of like using biomes.
Yeah. Yeah, we should talk about some biomes. But actually, can you demonstrate something that changes some plant life here, just so people realize that this stuff is basically, you can affect this foliage as an earth wizard by moving around Earth, or you can do it as a water wizard by adding water to places. And I think we could do some of that here as a demo.
Yeah, totally. So we don't have adding water in here, but if I make a hole in here, we should get some plants showing up around here. And they show up immediately. We'll have animations for it. But
I forgot
the idea
there's underwater plants too.
Yeah. The idea is for the foliage to happen quickly, and it will have health. Like this foliage will have health so that the creatures can eat it. And yeah, we've basically built that system along with a couple of other things, but this was the main expensive system that we were building, that we were optimizing and cleaning up over the past month. Um, yeah, let me keep messing with this a little bit. There's something weird going on with the sand not settling. Still a spike of water. The sand is acting a little funky. I might have to restart the game here.
Mr. Adrian, I'm watching the Twitch stream, so I'm a little bit behind. Can you angle your camera so I can see your screen some more? Okay, excellent. So I did not realize you were getting eaten by croakers there.
Yeah, well, I didn't either. That was fixing the camera.
I'm sorry about
Thanks
that.
a lot. This keeps falling. Masking tape has failed.
But yeah, so this is an important low-level and extensible system that I mean, you obviously can be extended by adding more plants. So I think we're going to have as many plants as Jason can think of, which will probably be a lot.
Yeah.
And of course, plants are going to be, at least in this world, the building block of life. It's what any higher order life form would eat. There will be trees of various kinds as well, I assume. And yeah, and so this goes to what you were talking about, which was biomes. So now that we have systems for sculpting the terrain and generating, rocks and mountains and sand patches and ponds and lakes and oceans, and now we have ways of generating patches of vegetation that allows us to create new biomes, which will be the focus for next month. So if you'd like to tell people what sorts of biomes you have in mind, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what biomes I have in mind?
Yeah, sure. Or what biomes do you think we will be making for next month?
Right. So, kind of what we've been doing this month is setting up for creating. I had to restart the game, by the way. There's some funkiness going on. The idea for this month is to create a world system where we would have different types of biomes within it. And the biomes won't. We want to make it. The first biomes we're going to do is just this one, which is kind of, I guess, like a mountainous tundra or something. I don't know what this would be called. But we want to be able to have jungles and deserts and all sorts of different biomes. But the way that we want to define those is based on this world simulation that we'll run. So all of the islands will be placed on a world that at a high level will kind of act like a board game. Each island can affect the islands next to it in a very board game-like fashion. So the things that you do that affect a single island might end up having an effect at the higher level that ends up affecting the world.
So give me like, because I'm not sure I understand the board game metaphor, but what's a concrete example of something you might do on one island that would affect another island you might travel to?
Yeah. So if you, for instance, if you change the weather to make it to turn it into a jungle, then it being a jungle might have some effect on its neighboring islands, and you can travel to those islands. A good example would be this island, for instance, has some croakers. I could make it more desirable for croakers, so it might get overpopulated, which would then cause croakers to transfer from this island to neighboring islands, which would have an effect on those islands because now they have croakers, and those might attack other creatures and stuff like that. So a lot of it is the transfer of life between islands. So like a board game, those would transfer over as units and have effects on the other islands, and that would start creating global effects. At a lower level, if you were on an island, you would see the star based on where you are on the planet and what time of day it is. So different parts of the planet would have different temperatures because they are on different parts of the world and it spins on an axis. So the two poles would never really face the sun, um, so they would be much colder than other parts. The equator would be much hotter. Those aren't things that you can control, but you can work with that to start affecting the systems of the world. You can, like we do all sorts of things with weather, transferring across the islands and stuff, and you would be on each island. Um, yeah.
So if let's just say I travel to an island and I I don't know, create a volcano or trigger. Maybe I find a volcano and somehow wake it up and it evaporates all the water.
hmm
Is that some like that extra excess of humidity is that something I might expect to change adjacent islands into
Yeah,
a
yeah,
like
exactly.
jungle type area? And would it
Yeah,
darken everything? Would it like darken the sky in such a way that whatever island I transfer to, it's much darker or more misty?
yeah, and it might cause a thunderstorm on your island. It might cause things to go completely out of whack. So that yeah, that's the kind of effect that we want it to have. So then you can do all these weather effects and global things that affect everything around you, and you can play with the weather and do all these things, but you feel like you have control over it on a single island. It just takes some effort and understanding of the systems to actually get it to that point, and then and that somehow transfers over to the other islands. So
That
that's what we were building up for this month, and we'll be working on that next month.
Yeah, and then right, and so that just to give everyone a view of the roadmap, um, we're reaching the end of our like low-level systems phase. I think we have all the low-level systems in place, at least as a prototype. That includes, the kind of basics of crafting spells, some basic things you can do with the elements, the foliage system we just talked about, the terrain generation, so there's floating rocks, various low-level things, and now we want to expand it out to be a kind of macro level world you can explore. So you can go from island to island, and find new stuff, and it becomes this sort of or if you want it to be, it can be this incredibly interesting exploratory experience. And then so that's our highly ambitious goal for next month, and once that's finished, we'll start working on the once you have a world that you can explore and a lot of things you can affect, then we'll start refining a lot of the mechanics for exactly what you could do with magic, and we'll be able to do that in a more informed way because we'll have an idea of exactly how the world works and what the ramifications are for the things you might do with spells.
Yeah, and particularly with water magic, we kind of want to build this whole thing so that when we starting in March, we'll start working on water magic, and we want it to not just be about moving the water like you can move sand. We want it to be certain things that you can do to affect the weather of the island and have higher effects in that way. So we want to build that so that we have a better idea of how to build water specifically, and then uh, after that we'll transition over to the last two elements of fire and air. And throughout this, we'll try to add more blocks and more stuff to Blockly along the way, but that's going to be a little bit slow until we get all of these systems completely built in, and then we'll be able to more cleanly add more blocks efficiently and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
for now, that's going to be a little bit slow. We're going to just keep throwing content at it. It's all going to be a little bit buggy. And a little bit broken at times, but we just kind of need to get everything in, and then we can go back and iterate on it and start cleaning stuff up. Because if
Right.
not, we'll spend a lot of time right now polishing everything up and get to a point where we've polished a bunch of stuff, but we decide that we absolutely hate something. We've done a lot of tests of things that we've had to completely scrap, and if we had wasted time getting those to work perfectly, we would have scrapped them and wasted even more time. So,
Yeah.
so it's a lot of it is testing stuff out, and we just kind of have to keep pushing that along. Um,
Cool.
yeah,
Well, I know I promised that I would keep it to 30 minutes. We're already over that, but I do want to take some questions. So for just a few minutes, if someone wants to shoot some questions into the chat, we'll do our best to answer them, even though Jason's
yeah,
not here.
totally. I don't know if I can answer any questions without Jason. I don't.
I think we're in the middle of a conversation here, so let me just skim up to the first question,
Yeah.
like thing. Okay, so what about ice, for example, Adrian? So I mean, obviously we have the 5 elements if you count life, earth, air, fire, and water.
Yep.
But there are, like if you look at magic in literature, there are other elements like ice. So how do you feel about
Hmm.
ice?
I mean, I love the idea of it. That's kind of what I was hinting at when we were talking about the world stuff. We kind of need to see what the space to play in is before we go too deeply into it. For instance, we might come up with a better solution for making it so that it can rain and snow and all this stuff, and then when we do that, we'll find the gaps in it. So ice is definitely a possibility. We did a test a while ago, several months ago, using ice, and it didn't really work out. So we're trying this slightly different approach, and then from there we'll see how it works out. Um, it's certainly something that I want to do in the future, um, but how
Yeah.
exactly it'll work, it's a little bit hazy right now. Um,
Actually, maybe a better case study in hybrids is something like lightning. Like lightning's hard to fit into a category. I mean, I guess in the sense that it's like a destruction sort of thing, it traditionally goes with fire. But
mhm.
in the sense that it arises from a meteorological phenomenon, it's kind of an air type thing.
Yeah,
So I'm not sure what it is, and honestly, the exact categorization doesn't matter so much. But I know we've had some discussions about how lightning might work.
yep.
Um, and actually, do you want to sum some of that up?
Yeah. So we actually did build a localized humidity simulation um, that you can kind of mess with, where you can increase the humidity at an area and that spreads out. So, way that we were thinking of implementing lightning is it would you'd set a start point and an end point, and it would try to travel across humidity to get to that point. Um, so, for instance, if you tried to cast lightning effect or lightning on the water, it would very easily go through it. You'd set a start and end point, and then it would travel through the humidity cells because it's very humid near the water, and it would spark all the way through. Um,
Right, which I love because it sort of makes magic something that isn't just trivial. It's not like you just, I don't know, like, oh, just cast a lightning spell and it just happens. I mean, you can do that, but if you really want to make a spell, you have to actually understand how the world works.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
not like you
totally.
just push a button and lightning happens. I mean, it can be that way if someone wrote the lightning spell for you, but for a spell crafter, it's about more than that. It's about really understanding the sort of science of the world and how various simulations work together. And so they would, a fully featured lightning spell would actually, kind of do something to adjust the humidity between you and your target, just to make sure that there's enough like conductivity, and then it would, try to spark the arc of lightning between you and that person going through the humidity in between you.
Yeah, or
Um,
you could, in that way, we make it, we turn it into something that is completely dependent on you. You could make a circle around you that increases the humidity, and that creates a shield of lightning. And yeah, like you said, it makes it a system in the world and not just something that's pre-built for you. And that's kind of the approach we have to take with each of the elements, and that's why it's a little bit hard to narrow down exactly all of the possible states of something like water. We've talked a lot about doing lava, and I still want to do that. But like I said, right now we're trying to first build out the world and get the first pass of all of the elements in first. And then from there, we can keep adding stuff. We can keep updating the game. We can do new types of islands that have different properties. We can make an island that has a volcano and stuff like that. So we're trying to push in the direction of being able uh, to get everything to a first state that is playable and fully implemented to be a fun, balanced game. And then from there, we can step back and keep iterating on that.
Right, right. Yeah, and my theory that I keep putting forward is that there's going to be like 90% of the people who play CodeSpells will just want to explore and use spells that other people have created for them, and that's totally fine. Like, honestly, that is totally okay if someone wants to play CodeSpells and never write code. That I'm perfectly happy with that. But there's going to be like a 10% of people who really, really like creating spells and understanding the world and are able to come up with those sort of, like we were talking about earlier, things that we would never have thought of. And the reason they'll be able to do that is because the systems will be interesting and complex and robust, and they'll work together with other systems in ways that are kind of unpredictable inherently. And so you'll get some really amazing spells like we already saw earlier today, just with the few systems, like the very, very few systems that are in the current version of the game. We already got some really, really interesting phenomena from the people who won our spell contest, and many other people as well who didn't have time to talk about today.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about what we have coming up for this month.
Yeah.
I hope other people are too. And I think we should call it
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. There were a couple more questions that I think we could get to very quickly that I just saw skimming over here, if that's cool.
I didn't see. Oh yeah, you're right. I see. Any word on changing the color of an orb yet?
We haven't done that. We could do that pretty quickly if we had time to at some point. We want to release this current version that I'm playing right now as an update early next week, but it's kind of bugging out a little bit, so it might need a little bit more before it's very fun. And the other thing is mostly it doesn't have too much more to do other than the visuals of foliage, so maybe it'll take a little bit longer to release this one, and we can do a few more updates, like being able to change the color of the orb. But we'll have to talk about that because I'm not sure how our schedule is going to be. There is already some code for doing that, and I think it sets it to red if you try to create an orb of another type but don't have enough mana to do so, which is that's the only time that it actually changes the color of it. So that would be really good to expose. Another question was the ability to spawn objects. We're not going to do that yet because we want to tie that to fire, so that's still going to be a while before we can get to that one. We want to build a whole system around that, so that one's still going to take a while.
Right. And I don't know if people know our timeline, but actually, do I know our timeline? We've done a lot of Earth. There's still, there'll always be more we'll add to all of the elements, but we'll spend, after we finish working on the world as a kind of place you can explore, then it's water, and then what's after that? Fire or air? I can't remember actually.
We're gonna do fire, and then so the plan right now, and this might change depending on how things go, but the plan is to get next month to get this world system at a rudimentary state so that we can have multiple islands and a simple simulation of the world, and so that you can actually run to different islands. We have the code for creating multiple islands. It's just a little bit there's no real good interface for doing it right now, so I built one and it was just jarring and frustrating, and it didn't offer too much interesting, so we want to build that this month, so that'll be February, and then March we want to do water and get that pushed out to a really good state. April will be fire, and then May will be air, magic, and debug UI. So the debug UI will be displaying information. We have a very rudimentary stuff for that in it that I disabled because it was broken. But you'll be able to see information about the world and query information about the world. A lot of air magic will be bound to that, to the idea of sensing the world. We'll have a couple of other things with air magic. I know that some people have been a little bit frustrated that they with our idea of air magic, but we will get to that, and it'll I feel confident that it'll be really cool. So that'll be May, and then in June we'll be releasing the first. We'll be starting the beta version, and from there we'll just be iterating on what we have and taking all the feedback that we've gotten and just making the game better and adding more features up until we release the
Yeah.
creative mode in September, I think, is our plan.
Yeah, I
So
believe so.
yeah, and then after that
Well,
we'll go to multiplayer, which will be interesting. That'll be fun.
well, on behalf of Jason, and Adrian, I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for the participation on the forums. Thank you for writing really cool spells and inspiring us. And thank you for your feedback. And just thank you for being here in the beginning. We're still in the very early stages, but we have, we know it's going to be awesome, and we're really encouraged by the fact that you do too.
Yeah, I apologize to all the alpha users if things seem like they're going slowly. We promise we will have more for you soon. We're a small team, so these first few months are gonna be a little bit slower, but we'll start pushing out more often very soon. So
Right.
yeah,
All right.
cool.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
See you next month.
Congratulations to the winners. Bye. I'm gonna turn off the live stream. We're still here. All right. Bye, everybody.